This is Nikita Kucherov, and he just watched his team's biggest rival bring their season to an end. The Tampa Bay Lightning have steadily declined since their dominant Stanley Cup runs at the start of the decade. Familiar names have departed, new ones have arrived, but no version of this roster has come close to matching the heights of their championship years. Of their recent campaigns, this past season, though, felt like it had the potential to be different, and for a moment, it felt like the Lightning might recapture some of that former magic. But when the pressure ramped up, they fell flat. Despite making aggressive moves at the trade deadline, Tampa was thoroughly outclassed in their series against Florida, and now serious questions are being asked about the long-term viability of this team's core. So today, let's break down what went wrong for the Lightning this season, and how much longer they can realistically remain contenders with an aging roster. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we're in a different recording space today, and that's mainly because it's at least 100 degrees outside, and sitting in that recording studio is just way too hot, so I refuse to do it. But as you can tell by the intro of today's video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Tampa Bay Lightning, talking about what happened to them this past season, their fizzle out in the playoffs, as well as a few future takes that I think will help you be a bit more optimistic about this team going forward. But before we get into all of that, I think it's important to look back on where everything started for the Lightning before this campaign, and that's all of the drama that they experienced during the offseason. Offseason 2024. Tampa was making headlines for their ongoing contract negotiations with franchise player Steven Stamkos. With just around $5 million in cap space entering free agency, the Lightning were operating under tight financial constraints. But reports started to surface that the team had actually offered Stamkos a deal, an 8-year, $24 million contract with an average annual value of just $3 million. And while Stamkos was believed to be open to a hometown discount, the offer was well below market value for a player who had just produced an 81-point season. In an effort to create some flexibility, Tampa made bold moves, trading defenseman Mikhail Sergachev to Utah and forward Tanner Jeannot to the Kings, freeing up over $10 million and giving the team roughly $16 million in total cap space. Yet, even with the added room, the two sides couldn't come to an agreement. And just like that, after 16 seasons, over 1,000 points, 2 Stanley Cups, 2 Rocket Richard trophies, and 7 All-Star selections, meanwhile not to mention his captaincy, Stamkos and the Lightning parted ways. Unable to bridge the gap, Stamkos signed with the Nashville Predators, marking the end of an era in Tampa. Why was this so significant? Yes, losing Steven Stamkos was a tough PR look, but they almost instantly recovered by bringing in Jake Guentzel, a younger forward who produced at a very high level throughout the year. They then made Victor Hedman their captain and even brought back a fan favorite in Ryan McDonagh to replace the absence of Mikhail Sergachev. But that last part needs a little bit more emphasis. Ryan McDonagh was not a one-for-one swap with Sergachev, and having him leave the team was actually a bigger blow than anyone could have expected. But before we do get into all of that, we haven't even talked about the regular season, so let's just talk about this new revamped team and how they started out the year. With a busy offseason behind them, the Lightning would embark on a new campaign. But of course, with all of the offseason changes, there would be some growing pains. By the halfway mark of the season, the Lightning were 23-16-5 with 47 points, which, compared to the year before, was a slight improvement. Highlighting this graphic here, you can see that all of their advanced metrics improved in some way, but one thing that fell off a little bit was their special teams, which was expected after losing guys like Stamkos and Sergachev, two guys who played significant minutes on your power play and your penalty kill. This was a strong stretch for the Tampa Bay Lightning, who could have had a worse record given all of the changes that they made, but still produced at a higher level without guys like Stamkos and Sergachev. While not considered real contenders at this point in the season, they were still very competitive and well-respected league-wide, giving them something to build off of for the second half of the year. For the remainder of the season, Tampa Bay really picked up the pace, finishing with a record of 47-27-8, earning themselves the second spot in the Atlantic Division. Recognizing the potential of the roster and the prospect of being real contenders, they made a huge move trading with the Seattle Kraken. Tampa Bay would acquire Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand in exchange for 2 first-rounders and a second-rounder. This move not only bolstered their depth, but provided the team with additional offense as they prepared to face off against the Florida Panthers yet again in the first round of the playoffs. To my surprise, public opinion was actually pretty split on this series, with many analysts and creators like myself picking Tampa to come out on top, but we don't need to talk about that. Florida had loaded up at the deadline. They had been to back-to-back finals, and I think at this point a lot of fans were just fatigued from seeing this team have so much success. Just a side note, it's actually kind of funny that a lot of people were rooting for Tampa when this was the team we all hated like 5 years ago, and now it completely flipped and we all wanted to see them win. Hockey is just kind of a funny sport. But with half of the world rooting for Tampa Bay, everyone expected a very good series that would at least go to 7, and that's just not what happened. Florida came out swinging in Game 1, steamrolling the Lightning 6-2 on the road and shocking their home crowd. It was a rough start for the Bolts, but at that point it still felt like something they could bounce back from, almost like they just had a little bit of playoff jitters. Game 2, and again, it was the Florida Panthers. They scored 2 goals that game and completely shut down Tampa's offense, shutting them out and taking a commanding 2-0 series lead as they headed back to their own barn. Game 3, and Tampa found a bit of hope, winning on the road 5-1 after dominating and responding with a bit of urgency against the Panthers. But whatever momentum they had built quickly vanished, because in games 4 and 5, the Panthers would clamp down defensively and completely stifle Tampa's offense, closing out a series that should have been much more competitive. But I would be remiss to not mention some of the storylines that truly entertained in this one, like Nikita Kucherov's disappearance of sorts, Brandon Hagel's hit on Barkov, Tkachuk's hit on Gensel, and then Ekblad's retaliation on Hagel. But when the dust settled, the Lightning simply underperformed, and because of that, their season came to an abrupt and disappointing end. So after a letdown in the playoffs, let's talk about the future of this team. And before we do that, we do need to preface this section by saying that there is very little pressure facing Tampa moving forward. They've already won 2 cups in this decade alone, which is more than almost every team in the NHL can say, outside of Florida. But of course, there are going to be expectations for a team with so much talent. So I just want to keep that in mind as we go through this next section. Next season will be a big one for some of these players, though. There is no denying that. The Lightning have talented players throughout their lineup who are still looking to compete in big moments, and to simply not stay competitive because you've won in the past is just not in their nature. For Tampa, their defense will need to be a bit more consistent come postseason time, they'll need a bit more from their depth, and of course guys like Kucherov will have to figure out how to put the puck in the back of the net, something that he struggled with as of late in the postseason. And last thing, I think Coop is going to have to figure out how to outcoach Maurice, because let's face it, you gotta go through the Panthers at some point, and they've walked you the past 2 years, especially in the coaching department. Getting knocked out by the Panthers isn't so much an indictment on Tampa as it is a credit to Florida. They're back-to-back champions for a reason, and they've proven to us that they can build powerhouse teams. The question moving forward is going to be, can Tampa regroup and prove that they still have a strong enough culture to be that team that takes down the Panthers? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But that's my breakdown of the Tampa Bay Lightning, starting from last year's off-season all the way to things you can expect moving forward. Let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Are you high on the Lightning and do you expect them to bounce back, or are you a bit more cautious after their early playoff exit? Drop all of your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe now. I also have a few other pieces of content here for you on the screen as we go through the off season, so be sure to watch those after this one. Again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next upload.